Not only are an increasing number of elected Republicans publicly panicking about the disastrous Trump tariffs, but some Republicans and some respected conservative financial analysts have crunched the numbers and are publicly admitting that Trump just created the biggest tax hike on Americans in peacetime in U.S. history and the biggest tax hike on Americans, generally speaking, in 60 years. That's right, Trump has single handedly raised your taxes, and even Republicans are admitting it, and they are worried about the political fallout. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, there are two parts to this. Elected Republicans panicking about the political fallout of this, and again, conservative financial firms and Republicans admitting that this is a big tax increase, the biggest peacetime tax increase in U.S. history, and the biggest in general in 60 years. Okay, so let's turn to that last part. Okay, Mike Pence, Donald Trump's own Republican vice president during his first term, dropped one of these big appellations. The Trump tariff tax is the largest peacetime tax hike in U.S. history. These tariffs are nearly 10 times the size of those imposed during the Trump-Pence administration and will cost American families over $3,500 per year. Staggering. Coming from Donald Trump's own former Republican vice president, as Mediaite and others have reported as well. That's stunning, right? Donald Trump is supposedly the leader of the tax cut party. Now, mostly tax cut for billionaires, to be clear, but that's how it works, right? So Republicans love to cut taxes for the wealthy and the privileged and for corporations, those whose marginal utility with respect to these dollars is low. They're already absurdly wealthy. They already have a surplus and abundance of wealth, and so they love to cut taxes for them. They like to increase taxes in one form or another for middle and lower income families, right? Shift the tax burden onto them. And even Mike Pence is admitting this goes way too far, and it's a tax hike unprecedented in terms of peacetime in U.S. history. This is stunning. Donald Trump has become the tax hike president. He always was for middle and lower income families, but not like this. And it's going to hit everybody. Stunning. Stunning stuff, especially, again, when you consider that the legislative highlight of the Trump-Pence term, as far as they're concerned, as far as conservatives are concerned, was the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which again cut taxes for millionaires and billionaires primarily, and to some extent middle and lower income families as well. Their focus is always on relieving the tax burden from those who are most equipped to deal with the tax burden and still be extraordinarily wealthy. And even Mike Pence is like, this is the biggest peacetime tax increase and will cost American families $3,500 per year. Stunning. J.P. Morgan, the conservative financial firm, well, this is what they have to say. This is the biggest tax rise in the U.S. has seen for nearly 6 decades. Will increase inflation by 1.5 points this year, already perilously close to recession even before retaliation. So this is from a note from their chief economist. On a static basis, today's announcement would raise just under $400 billion in revenue, or about 1.3% of GDP, which would be the largest tax increase since the Revenue Act of 1968. We estimate that today's announced measures could boost PCE prices by 1 to 1.5% this year, and we believe the inflationary effects would mostly be realized in the middle quarters of the year. The resulting hit to purchasing power could take real disposable income growth in 2Q, 3Q into negative territory, and with it the risk that real consumer spending could also contract in those quarters. This impact alone could take the economy perilously close to slipping into a recession. And this is before accounting for the additional hits to gross exports and to investment spending. Headlines about retaliatory measures by U.S. trading partners are already coming out, and we expect to learn more in coming days. The somewhat confusing nature of today's news, coupled with the uncertainty over how these tariffs will remain in place, could make for an even less friendly environment for investment spending, though that is one way to narrow the saving, investment rebalance, and hence narrow the current account deficit. We plan to revisit our forecast later this week. So J.P. Morgan is devastated by this. They are furious about the Trump tariffs, again, as Newsweek and others are reporting as well. So again, before we get into the reaction from elected Republicans, which is also bordering on panic, there you have it. Republicans and conservative financial firms admitting that these things are disastrous and amount to a tax increase on the American people, middle and lower income families as well. And especially because, again, they're the ones who can afford a tax increase the least and should be spared this sort of ridiculous, flamethrower approach to managing the economy. Donald Trump's own former vice president admitting the biggest tax hike on the American people ever in peacetime. And J.P. Morgan saying the biggest in general in about 60 years. Stunning. So let's look at the potential political fallout for elected Republicans. Manu Raju of CNN has graciously put together a compilation of elected Republicans panicking about this.
Anyone who says there may be a little bit of pain before we get things right need to talk about farmers who are one crop away from bankruptcy. They don't have time, so we've got to be crisp on this implementation. Otherwise, we could do damage that's irreparable to farmers.
As the president has admitted, tariffs will create pain for some businesses, and I think Wisconsin will be particularly hard hit with all the manufacturing and agricultural interests. He's used tariffs in the past effectively to get nations to do what they should have done anyway. Right now, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm concerned.
We've already heard from some of our beef processors and popcorn exporters that they're losing some market share in Europe, so it is concerning. And but I'm all for fair trade, reciprocal tariffs. I think in the end, a trade war doesn't help anybody.
And that last comment came from Don Bacon, who's a congressman.
Yeah, so Don Bacon is one of those Main Street Republicans who occupies a swing district. He is perhaps the most moderate of the Republicans in the House of Representatives that I can immediately think of, which isn't saying much. The first guy was Tom Tillis, who's one of my senators here in North Carolina, and that guy is up for re-election in 2026. And there is the possibility, and hopefully the probability, that our very popular former Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, will run against Tom Tillis in the 2026 election. I think that is the most plausible way that we get Tillis out of power is by running Roy Cooper. I suppose other options, because again, North Carolina is, a swing state, relatively speaking, but given that he's an incumbent, there's like a default advantage there. And the odds of displacing Tillis and shrinking that Republican Senate majority are lower unless we get Cooper to run against him. And God, Governor Cooper, please, let's do it. But he's panicking. The problem with Tillis is he runs into that issue that so many elected Republicans have, which is in order to win a primary, they have to hug Trump as closely as they can. They have to. But when you're in a swing state, you have to put distance between you and Trump in order to attract enough votes to win a general election. So this is the conundrum Trump has put these people in, where they have to run far to the right to appease him, and then they have to cover twice that distance, during the general election, and it's something that's tough. So hopefully we will see Tom Tillis suffer the political consequences of this, as well as Bacon and all the others as well. But there are others as well, including Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, one of the worst in Congress. He's not happy about this either.
In the long run, we're all dead. Short run matters too. Nobody knows what the impact of these tariffs is going to be on the economy.
Anyone who says there may be a little bit of pain before we get things right need to talk about farmers who are one crop away from bankruptcy.
I just want to see that one part with John Kennedy as well. Because again, another diehard MAGA Republican. Louisiana is not a swing state, but even he is talking about this. The Washington Post has a good op-ed about this earlier today. Fallout from Trump tariffs put some Republicans in a political bind. Steep new tariffs triggered a stock market sell-off Thursday, upping pressure on Republican lawmakers, some of whom are worried about the political fallout. Several Republican senators and House lawmakers joined Trump at the White House on Wednesday for his speech, and many of them have cheered on the new tariffs, but others have already expressed concern. Quote, "It's kind of a high-risk bet he's making on the economy," said Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, who is also terrible. He added that he thought some of Trump's own advisors had concern about the strategy, but he acknowledged that Trump's bet might pay off. Quote, "He might be right," Johnson said. Quote, "I don't know. Trade's complicated. I can't game this out." Well, maybe you should exercise your due diligence and your proper authority as not only a member of a coordinate branch. You don't work for Trump. You're not in the executive branch serving at his pleasure. You are part of his party. I understand he's your thought leader, but you guys are part of the branch which is actually supreme, the necessarily predominant branch. How about you use that? And by the way, tariffs, too much power has been delegated to the president, any president, Democrat or Republican, regarding tariffs. There should be a tighter leash on this. Maybe you could join with other lawmakers like Mitch McConnell and Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and Rand Paul in delivering some rebuke to Trump. But unfortunately, many of them are too afraid to, even though they know this is a disastrous idea. So we'll be tracking this. This is only the first day after the Trump global / reciprocal tariffs have been announced, but we're already seeing some potential political fallout. And again, an admission by conservative firms like J.P. Morgan and Republicans like Mike Pence, Donald Trump's former vice president, a lifelong conservative, admitting that this is either, depending on how you look at it, the biggest general tax increase in 60 years and the biggest peacetime tax increase in American history, All on you, the American people, and only 100% the responsibility of Donald Trump. Donald Trump chose to do this. He's raising your taxes. Food for thought. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.